Hey everyone, and welcome back. Now today I wanted to answer the question, is ICP on a moon mission? Because at least at this point, it looks like things could be shaking up to turn out that way. There's a lot of really interesting developments and a lot of at least what I would consider pretty fundamentally bullish things going on within the ICP ecosystem with, I think, multiple different avenues in which they could find success in this upcoming cycle. So let's go on ahead and talk a little bit further about kind of some of the things I'm seeing and how some of those might play out, as well as everybody's favorite, a couple price predictions based on some of the things that I'm seeing. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So the first thing I want to check out here is the ICP dashboard, because there's a couple really interesting things going on that show, I would say, fundamental strength within the ICP ecosystem. So first off, we're going to look at the supply, because the supply is something that at least recently has been consistently inflationary. But as we can see over the past 7 days or so, we can actually see it's become deflationary. Obviously, we have these ticks up. I'm imagining this is either, I'm not super familiar with how the ICP ecosystem does it, but it looks like they have either batch mintings of new tokens for service providers, or potentially these could be token unlocks as well. Since this is the total supply, I kind of doubt it's token unlocks. I would imagine this is like minting new token into supply. But we can see here, after these little bumps, we do see actually the total number of tokens decreasing over time. I would imagine same thing here. Since there is a lot more information being processed on the network, I would imagine this is essentially kind of the rewards being created for all of the people handling cycles on the network. So that's one thing that started looking pretty interesting here so far. It looks like the dashboard may have just updated, because we are seeing some adjustments within the overall numbers as well. One thing we can also see here is the cycle burn rate is sitting at about 2 trillion cycles. Yesterday, though, we were seeing it about 6.5 trillion cycles per second, which is insane. If we looked at previous, we were sitting at, what is it, 18 to 25 billion ish, and then we start to tick up all the way, and then that massive explosion. And this is due to that kind of new meme coin called Bob that was created on the ICP ecosystem, and pretty much the excitement and interest surrounding that has been what's caused a lot of both the increase in cycle burn rate, as well as some of the deflationary measures that we've seen on the circulating supply as well. So this is really interesting, because if this continues to keep up, we could see consistently deflationary pressure on the ICP token, which obviously would be pretty good for price. Ultimately, I don't think that's great for ecosystem health long term, but at least potentially in the short term, price action, it could be really valuable. And so moving on, looking at the ICP chart, there's another couple things I wanted to point out as well. So here we're looking at daily candles, and we can see something that is pretty interesting. This almost looks like we've been almost starting to form this very large wedge ever since the beginning, or about the end of April. And so since then, obviously, we've been kind of consolidating. It's held this level of support trend line pretty well. We also can see it's held this descending trend line pretty well. What we have seen recently is it did actually break through and break out of this wedge. It has come down. It does look like it's starting to test kind of the top end of this support right now. Now, theoretically, if this were to bounce off of this trend line and continue back up, that could be incredibly bullish for what we're seeing here with ICP. And it could be, the start of the ICP moon mission potentially. Now, one thing I will kind of caveat this with is the overall market does not seem to be in a place that is imminently coiled up and ready to see explosive growth, right? And so while the fundamentals of ICP do look very good currently, we just need to keep in mind that, the market moves on Bitcoin essentially, right? So regardless of how bullish this may look kind of technically speaking, we do always need to keep that in mind, that this, it's not always necessarily based on just what this chart looks like, because at least in my opinion, this chart actually looks really good so far, but we don't always, we don't always get to say exactly what goes on here. So that's just something to keep in mind. But as we can see, from a technical perspective, it does look really good. We are starting to see an uptick in volume, which is good as well. Also, you can see, as I mentioned before, I am doing all my charting on Margex, just because I have been taking some trades here recently. If we start to see a bounce here, I may potentially try and do, a leveraged long play. Again, as I mentioned, basically every time I talk about Margex, this is a very, very dangerous market to be trading in. So I would not be doing anything crazy. But sometimes, I just like to, I think it's kind of fun to do this type of stuff. So I might try it out and just kind of see how it goes. But if you are interested, there is a referral link down in the description. You can get up to $10,000 in referral bonuses, as well as they do still have that CASP airdrop going on. So if you are interested and want to try it out, just go on ahead and sign up using my link below. So continuing on, now I want to start to do a little bit more analysis into an ICP price prediction, right? And usually, as you guys know, if you've seen any of my price predictions before, I do my best to not just like cherry pick a number out of the sky somewhere, right? And so I try and do as much like quantitative like backing, I guess, as I can to a price prediction. I know price predictions are fundamentally very like subjective, but I wanted to at least kind of give a good basis, I guess, for how I'm getting here. So what we can see right now is we're looking at the ICP market cap. So currently we're sitting at about 3.8 billion with a total supply of 522 million, circulating supply of 470 million. I'm going to go off total supply just because for me, I pretty much only want to look at the fully diluted valuation, which is sitting at 4.2 billion, almost 4.3 billion. Notice I have not mentioned price yet, because in my opinion, when we're doing price predictions, price frankly doesn't really matter too much. It's really more about the market cap and then peers within the ecosystem, right? And so one thing based on how ICP works is it's essentially trying to be like a cross-chain infrastructure that people can work within, right? So ideally, this could support Ethereum, this could support Bitcoin, this could support any other cryptos or blockchains that would want to participate within this ecosystem. It's built to be kind of very flexible, and it's built to be kind of the foundation of the internet, deeper than even all these layer ones, right? It is kind of the layer zero that currently is held by Amazon and Google and a lot of these cloud providers, because there really is no Web3 cloud provider. Web3 is really using Web 2 cloud infrastructure with some very light computations on chain. So it is not at all, or not even close to like fully computation on chain. It's not even close. So anyway, just want to make that clear. So there's two things that I'm going to compare ICP to. The first one is Ethereum. Now, some of you may think this is a bit of a bizarre comparison, but the reason I'm comparing to Ethereum is because, as we can see right here, Ethereum is the number 2 crypto. So I do feel like, that is probably the most accurate comparison, in the sense that, Ethereum kind of ships itself a lot of the time as the internet of crypto, if Bitcoin is the gold of crypto. So, I think Ethereum probably is a pretty decent comparison to make. Also, I would say that ICP actually is probably a lot more flexible in terms of kind of the compute that it can allow, how it does it, the cost efficiency, the speed, a lot of these types of things. Now, obviously, you are definitely sacrificing on the decentralization, because ICP is quite centralized, at least compared to what Ethereum is currently. But, I guess that's something that we need to decide if that's important to us, and if so, how important, right? And so, but ultimately what we can see is, the all-time high market cap of Ethereum is like, I can't get it all the way to the top, but I think it's somewhere around $580 billion. We did see back in this most recent run up in March, approaching 500 billion, but not quite. So 580 billion is kind of like the watermark to hit, I would say, as far as like its closest crypto competitor. Obviously it is Ethereum. Ethereum is very, very large. So that is a pretty high target to hit, right? The next one is Amazon, right? And so obviously Amazon is a multi-trillion-dollar company. So I tried to find an article, and this is an article from Forbes that tries to piece out AWS specifically, and like essentially if AWS were to be spun off out of Amazon, what would its market cap be? Now, as we can see up here, this is actually from 2021. Well, actually, so it was from 2029 initially, but then it was updated in 2021. So this is definitely a very dated article. But when I was, obviously, as you can imagine, there's not a lot of like analysis and reporting done on sub companies within publicly traded companies. So, there's not a ton of information there. But what we could see is, at this point in time, again, 5 years ago, remember, AWS could be worth nearly $400 billion on a standalone basis, which is nuts. And then we have this other article. My apologies, I don't have Bloomberg, so we're going to have to kind of peer through the veil a little bit. But we can see that the Amazon Cloud unit is on course for a $3 trillion valuation, says Redburn. And again, this is in 2022. Again, there's not a whole lot of reporting on sub companies within other companies. So, we are kind of reaching here as far as trying to find a valuation. They say it's on course, I believe, within like the like little snippet it gives you on the internet before you click into an article. I think they said by 2030. So this is definitely not anything that's like it's here right now. But I would say that is probably pretty fair. I mean, AWS is massive. They almost have a monopoly on the market. If we can look at the market share here, Amazon itself has 32%, Microsoft has 23%, Google has 10%, and the next 20 companies have 26%. And then after that, everybody else is 9%. So essentially, that's what? 65% of the market is controlled by 3 companies, and this is in 2023. It would not surprise me at all if this is actually more now. I've heard stats that it's up to 80%. It probably anywhere, I would say, between 65 and 80%, which is massive. I mean, this is effectively an oligarchy, right? There are 3 companies that effectively control the space. And so a $3 trillion valuation in like cloud infrastructure, which is like huge and only gets bigger, that seems to be somewhat reasonable. So here's kind of how I got to a price prediction. Is I took Ethereum at its all-time high market cap, and so since I couldn't find it exactly, I think I did like $580 billion. And then I averaged that with the $400 billion number. Again, I would very much make the claim that this is higher, but just for the sake of this, because when I'm making price predictions, I already know I'm going to get some comments being like, oh, you're freaking crazy, there's absolutely no way it's ever going to hit this price. And that's fine. That's why this is my opinion, and this is not financial advice, so you can either listen or not, and that's totally fine. But yeah, I mean, this is just my opinion, and like I said, I'm just going off the data here. Like, you could argue that my assumptions are wrong of how I got to where I got, but at least from what we're seeing at the data, 400 billion is probably a low number. And then, 580, that might be a bit aggressive, obviously, because this is Ethereum. This is like the biggest. But from a pure like fundamental perspective of what Ethereum is trying to do, I feel like they're relatively fair comparisons. So anyway, essentially how I got here was I took an average between like, I think 580 and 400, and I got to $475 billion would be kind of like if internet computer really takes off and things just go absolutely crazy, that's probably like the value that we could expect, right? And so I did 475 billion, and then I divided it by the total supply of 522 million. Now, this got us to a price of $908.59 per ICP. Now, obviously, this can change. If it continues to inflate, this number may go up, which would then make the price go down. If we see what we've been seeing currently here on this dashboard and things continue to deflate, obviously, we did just see this spike here. But if things trending over time have officially looked like they've started to deflate with this massive increase in cycles, then potentially this number gets even lower, right? And maybe the $908 goes even higher. Now, we could also make the other claim of, well, okay, yeah, Ethereum is $580 billion, but Amazon, where I'm using it, $400 billion. And maybe at this point, it would not surprise me if it's $700-800 billion, especially given the control that they have on this industry. So in that case, maybe we're sitting more towards like a $600 billion valuation or 650. And I did, just purely out of interest, I did another valuation using the same market cap or the same supply, but at a $650 billion market cap, just to see. And that actually got us a price of $1,243.33 per ICP. So, I mean, obviously we are sitting at $8 right now, but if ICP can take off and find adoption in the same way that AWS has, and potentially do Ethereum but like better, obviously ICP is trying to work with Ethereum and allow Ethereum to build on top of ICP. So that's not potentially like a one or the other type of situation. It could be like a both win situation, but we could see some pretty ridiculous price appreciation here, especially considering kind of who we're going up against. So again, obviously these are massive gains, right? Like $900, that's over 100x from here. 1200's like 120x or something like that. So that's obviously like a lot. So I would maybe take those, with a grain of salt, especially in terms of like where we could be headed within this next cycle. Just because if we look, I mean, obviously they launched at like $400, but have since very much faded away, almost down to, where we're at now at $8. But we can see, it in 2021 we had a high of $80, and here it's in this most recent run it was about 20 is what it looks like. So I mean, there definitely still is some movement on this one. And I do think once it finds adoption, the technology itself really is pretty impressive. And so I think once it starts to find adoption, this could just go absolutely nuts, which is why I make the claim that ICP could potentially be on a moon mission here. And so, obviously it's my opinion, take it with a grain of salt. But the other thing I wanted to look at here, and this is something, careful, beware, we are entering into the speculation zone, because this is just a rumor, at least as far as I'm aware. There's nothing here that is confirmed. This is just based off of an ICP like PowerPoint presentation from what it sounds like. And so, but if this is true, I mean, this right here, like this guy says, like Terry Robinson says, like it's going to melt faces, and I completely agree, right? So essentially, what they are pitching here is they've got self-writing web apps. And so basically, upon verbal instructions, AI can create and update secure running web applications, not just write the code. So right now, obviously, there's a huge amount of craze around AI, and AI is I would say generally helpful, but it's generally helpful to people who really know how to use it quite well. And so if this lowers the barrier to entry of people creating stuff, and it's on ICP, like this would completely change. Like this is like a mass market adoption type of event, right? If this is in fact true. So again, remember, this is the speculation zone. I don't actually know if this is true. This is just something that I did see that seems interesting, and I have heard a little bit about ICP AI. So I just wanted to share this with you guys. That way we're at least potentially ahead of the curve if something does actually get announced. But again, like, very careful. Do not, don't go invest your life savings into ICP because of this tweet that may or may not be true, right? Like that would be stupid. Don't do that. So anyway, hopefully you did find the information in this video useful though. If you did, please do give me a like and subscribe. I really am trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the month. Maybe I might be able to do it by the end of this week, which would be super cool. That's kind of like my new secret goal. I'm not like counting on it, but I think it'd be really cool if I could make that work. But anyway, so if you did find it valuable and interesting, please do hit the like and subscribe. It really does help me out. It also helps me reach more people and get ICP out to the wider community, right? So that does really help me out, and also I would say helps ICP out as well. So also, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, anything that you want to share with me or just want to talk about, feel free to drop me a comment. I do want to give a special shout out to Thorazine. He's very, very knowledgeable on the ICP ecosystem, and he's actually been very, very helpful in terms of explaining some questions I have and directing me into certain areas within like the ICP ecosystem that I can go to find some of these answers. So that has been really, really helpful, and this is just to show that I really, really do appreciate all of you guys. Obviously, I sit here and talk about things, and I know I would say a pretty decent amount of stuff, but I mean there's a lot of you guys that are really, really quite specialized in certain areas, and so it does give me a lot of help to be able to lean on some of you guys for some of these things and ask you questions and things like that. So I appreciate you guys very much, and I also really like when you interact with me. So anyway, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.